Hello, my name is Jamie Barron, and this is my self-improvement speech. So first, I have a question. What would your life look like if you prioritize yourself as much as you prioritize your responsibilities? This is something I had asked myself and why I chose the book Brave Boundaries, Strategies to Say No, Stand Strong, and Take Control of Your Time. It gave me many tips and tricks to continue to improve this semester and beyond. I connected the book with the class because it talked about things like negative face and accommodating conflict style. Negative face because I'm always worried about people thinking less of me if I say no and set a boundary. And accommodating conflict style because I'd rather accommodate people and let them do what they want to do rather than cause more conflict and me do what I want to do. Overall, though, some of the strategies helped this and more in terms of setting boundaries. So I'm going to go over three first: the boundary checklist, the boundary backlash toolkit, and the brave boundary model. And those are ones that I didn't get to apply in my everyday life, but I found very impactful. We will then go over two different concepts that I did apply in my everyday life and really found success in. And those are the concepts of honoring boundaries with myself and the physical boundary itself. So with that in mind, let's go on to the first concept, the boundary checklist. With this, the first step is to identify one's pain point. Your pain point is what's causing you that stress in your life. And according to Shulcut, the key to this step is quote, most of the time, when we lack boundaries around our biggest pain points, we do not believe we have any power over what the pain point is, end quote. With this, it's saying you're already having power over your pain point by identifying it as a stressor and deciding to do something about it. And that moves us to our next step of the boundary checklist, which is what would the boundary look like in this situation and for the person setting it. So each boundary is going to be unique to the situation and the person. You have to imagine how is this going to look like depending on what the boundary is for and how is it going to impact you setting it. And the final focus is the imagination step. And with this, Shulcut shared some words that really impacted me for the rest of the book. And they were, quote, how would you feel to be free, end quote. This is where you imagine your life after you set the boundary. And that's essential to the process because if you can't imagine your life better, why are you setting a boundary? Moving on to something you need after setting a boundary is the concept of a boundary backlash toolkit. And these are strategies for dealing with difficult people. So the first strategy is saying thank you and taking a deep breath. Taking a deep breath is sometimes all you need to do. Breathe and excuse yourself from the situation. A verbal response is not always needed. They know your boundary. You don't need to give them the time of day by responding. If you want to respond though, then saying thank you is a good one. Shulcut states, quote, these two words are incredibly disarming and a powerful weapon to use on anyone who sends you raging backlash, end quote. With this, she is saying, by saying thank you, you are ending the conversation. You don't need to do anything else. You know where you stand. And the next strategy she shares is maintaining a brief but firm manner of speaking. If you get emotional, then people feel they can continue to push you and push that boundary. By being firm, you're standing your ground and holding your boundary. And the final strategy within the toolkit is providing detailed instruction while remaining unemotional. This is important because by providing instruction that's detailed, they cannot say they didn't know what was expected of them. The unemotional aspect is also very, very essential to stop rising tensions. An example provided by Shulcut is, quote, I appreciate your feedback. My answer is unchanged, end quote. This was her example of how one can respond. Some people may say it's rude, but it's not. They are the rude ones pushing your boundary. Hold your ground. Now, moving on beyond the toolkit, we're going to go over the very helpful concept of the brave boundary model. This is a series of 4 questions for more experienced people when setting boundaries. And the first question one must ask itself is, quote, what do I know to be true, end quote. What you do here is create a basic facts of the situation. What do you know and what can you say about it? The next question in the model is, quote, what can I control, end quote. And with this, she shares a quote from her own personal experience that states, quote, basically I underperformed, I didn't trust myself, end quote. She had a very difficult coworker that was pushing her boundaries. but she knew she could control how she performed in that situation. As for the third question in the model, Shillcutt states it's, quote, how can I set a boundary, end quote. And with that, she implemented one of her own things from the Boundary Backlash Toolkit. She held her ground, stayed firm, and remained unemotional. She stated, quote, I will speak calmly and act unaffected, end quote. It was all she needed to do was to not give him the power to impact her in her work, and that was her only boundary she needed there. And that leads us to the final question within the model, which is, quote, whom do I need to share the boundary with, end quote. And this is important because if it's an internal boundary, maybe you don't need to share it with anybody. But if it's external and the boundary needs to be set with those around you, they cannot know what your boundary is unless you communicate that. And that's just as important as setting it with yourself. And that is the end of the Brave Boundary Model. So now we can move on to ones that I applied in my everyday life. The concept of honoring boundaries with yourself and having a physical boundary. And these are ones that I really did have success with throughout the semester so far. For the first one, honoring boundaries with yourself, Shillcutt quote states, quote, I will honor myself today by honoring my boundaries, end quote. And this is something that I continually repeated to myself because I found it so impactful. If I set the boundary that I don't do homework after 9 p.m., there were times where I wanted to, but I had to tell myself, honor yourself by honoring your boundaries. And I had success with this. The second one of the physical boundary was what I found to be the most impactful. And with that, she used an example of her dog where she said, quote, within a few weeks, Jack could be found sleeping in his kennel with the door open, end quote. I have my own dog, so I understood what she was saying. And that's why I created a room for myself where I could be alone. I could go after I finish my homework after 9 p.m., be with myself. And that physical boundary was so crucial to maintaining my peace and prioritizing myself. In conclusion, boundaries can only help you. By prioritizing yourself, you'll be more prepared to take on those other responsibilities in your life without all that stress. The 5 strategies I shared with you today, the boundary checklist, the Boundary Backlash Toolkit, the Brave Boundary Model, as well as the other ones, honoring boundaries with yourself and having that physical boundary, are essential to your own self-worth. Having that ability to say, I am worthy of setting boundaries and prioritizing myself. Thank you for listening, and remember, you can only maintain your responsibilities if you're first prioritizing your own well-being. Thank you.